A leading economic historian has warned that a lack of political will to implement tough fiscal reforms in the US could lead to another financial crisis, this time in the bond market. Harvard Professor Niall Ferguson is visiting Australia for a series of lectures on the state of the global economy. He also has some pointed thoughts about the economic decisions being made here in Australia. Francis Bell reports.
The US Reserve Bank Governor recently described America's recovery from recession as slow and fitful. But economic historian and Harvard professor Niall Ferguson is not convinced.
The difficult decisions are being put off because the politicians simply don't have the leadership skills. They don't, frankly, have the guts to explain to the American people what has to be done. And I'm very much afraid that this won't change until another financial crisis, this time in the bond market, makes it change.
Professor Ferguson, who was giving the inaugural Portfolio Construction Academy lecture in Sydney, says he's not calling for austerity measures like those seen in Europe, but he believes the US needs to stabilise its budget within 10 years.
And it's just not acceptable to produce something, as the White House did just the other day, that says the deficit will still be above 5% of GDP 10 years from now.
Prominent Australian economist Ross Garnaut believes the economic troubles in the US and Europe will lead to a permanent step down in economic growth in the developed world.
The best case is tepid growth in Europe, historically low growth in the United States. The worst cases, of course, are if we get another bout of financial instability, and we may.
Niall Ferguson says the implications for the Australian economy are limited because of its dependency on China, but he's warned there could be negative economic consequences from what he's described as the parochial and small-minded political debate over immigration.
The large part of the problem is that Australia is not building the infrastructure that its larger population needs in terms of housing, above all in terms of transportation, and even actually, to revert to the mining sector, in terms of port facilities and railways.
On the mining sector, Professor Ferguson is not convinced the government has got its remodelled mineral resources rent tax right.
I would be more persuaded by this if I saw a sovereign wealth fund being created for Australia, comparable with the one that the Norwegians have, and which they've built up by taxing their oil and gas industry over the years.
Wary of the heated political climate, Ross Garnaut wouldn't comment directly on the mining tax, but says Australia should learn the lessons of the last boom and save more of its mining revenue.
Under the existing tax system, we got a lot more revenue, and as I mentioned, a very high proportion of it we spent as we went along. I think we would have been wiser to save more at that time.
He says a higher level of national savings would better protect Australia from any slowdown in growth by its major trading partners, China, India and Indonesia.